Hello, friends and clients of Walker Gates Vella. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, immigration attorney, and I am here today to talk to you about how to calculate your family size properly for Form I-864. Now, this is really important for anyone who is sponsoring an immigrant to become a permanent resident in the United States. Every petitioner, everyone who files an I-130 for an immigrant has to be a sponsor on Form I-864. Even if they don't work, even if they don't have any income, they still have to complete and submit the I-864 on behalf of that intending immigrant. And if they don't have enough income, if they don't have any income, or if they don't have enough income, then they have to get a co-sponsor who will also submit Form I-864. The family size on Form I-864 is how you determine whether or not you have enough income to actually sponsor the immigrant. The family size determines the amount of income that a person needs to be able to successfully sponsor an immigrant. So the family size is really important, and it's a little tricky. There's some stuff to know about calculating family size on Form I-864 that isn't necessarily easy to figure out. So I'm going to go through right now how to calculate family size for Form I-864. This is part 5 of Form I-864, and it's found on page 4 of the current edition of Form I-864. You can find Form I-864 on uscis.gov/I-864.pdf. That's where you can download the form if you need it, if you need to complete it. Even if you need to make a draft, you can download as many of those as you want from that site and go through it multiple times if you need to. So once you get to part 5 of the Form I-864, you've already completed your information as the sponsor, and you're completing this form with your information primarily. Now, you do also list information on this form for the person that you're sponsoring, the person or people that you're sponsoring. Any immigrants that you are sponsoring with this form will be listed already once you get to part 5. But you're completing the information in part 5 with information about your own household, your own family, your own personal information as the sponsor, as the petitioner or the co-sponsor. So the first, in part 5, the first number that you are expected to include or calculate is the number of intending immigrants that you are sponsoring with this form. Now, it's usually one, but sometimes you may be sponsoring an entire family. And so however many people you listed in the earlier sections of the form as intending immigrants, that's the number that you enter in number 1 on part 5 of the Form I-864. Now, part number 2 is where you count yourself. So there will always be a minimum family size of 2 people, no matter how big your family is, whether you are, even if you're single and have no kids, because you're counting that intending immigrant and or his or her dependents, your family size will always be at least 2, because you're going to count yourself and the at least one intending immigrant that you're sponsoring. Now, if you're married, you're also going to list your spouse. You're going to enter 1 for your spouse. However, please note that you never ever count anyone twice in your family size. So if the person that you're sponsoring on this form is your spouse, if you are petitioning for your spouse, you leave number 3 empty, or you write 0, because you will have already counted your spouse as the intending immigrant up above. So if you are not sponsoring your spouse, you're sponsoring someone else, then you're going to enter your spouse there if you're married. But if you're sponsoring your spouse, leave it blank or enter 0. Number 4 is dependent kids. And again, if you're sponsoring your own dependent children and you've already listed them in number 1, you're not going to write any number, or you're going to enter 0 in number 4. However, if you haven't already identified your dependent children, they are going to include every single child that you have under the age of 21, not under the age of 18, under the age of 21, anywhere in the world, whether they live with you or not, whether they're working or not, whether you support them or not, whether you pay child support, whether you're required to pay child support or not required to pay it, it doesn't matter. The only time you would not list your own biological or dependent child in this Form I-864 is if your parental rights have been terminated. That is the only time. Now, if the child is no longer living, then you will not list them. But any child who is living under the age of 21 anywhere in the world must be included and counted in this family size. So that's an important point to remember. All right, next, number 5, any other dependents on your tax returns. I've seen people list their mother-in-law, their sister, their brother, their cousins, nieces, nephews. I've seen all kinds of people listed as dependents on tax returns. If you have done that, you may have gotten some tax benefit from that, and that's fine. However, now that you're completing Form I-864, those people have to be included in your family size. So if you have, and they're only going to be looking at the previous year's tax returns. So right now we're in 2021. So on your 2020 tax returns, if you've listed dependents aside from, you know, your minor children, your spouse, and the people who are already included in your family size, if you've got anybody else listed as a dependent on your tax return, those people have to also be included. Now, if you didn't list them in 2020, but you did list them in 2019 or 2018, you don't have to include them here. Okay, so it's only the previous year's tax returns where the dependents have to be included. Next, the next question, number 6, have you ever sponsored anyone else before? Anyone that you've ever sponsored with another Form I-864 or any variation of Form 864, 864EZ or I-864A who is currently a permanent resident is supposed to be listed here. Now, if you've read the instructions carefully, you might have noticed that you don't have to include a lawful permanent resident who has already either become a citizen or who has earned 40 quarters of credit with the Social Security Administration. Okay, 40 quarters of credit for purposes of Form I-864 is really important. And this can be a little confusing because it's hard to know how many credits a person may have earned. You can never earn more than 4 credits in a year, but anyone who has worked even part-time for minimum wage in the United States for a year likely has earned 4 credits for that year. It isn't very much money that you have to earn in order to get those Social Security credits by working in the United States. Now, they have to have worked lawfully. They can't have worked without permission, and they have to have, filed their taxes and declared that income in order to earn the credits. But if a person has, if you sponsored somebody 10 years ago and they have worked at least for minimum wage for the entirety of that 10-year period, then they have earned 4 quarters for each year, and they will have a total of 40 quarters. If they've worked more than 10 years, then they will have earned more than 40 quarters. And if they have been married to a U.S. citizen during that time, they may have even earned double credits. People who are married can be credited with their spouse's Social Security credits. So it is important to think about this one carefully and to determine whether or not someone you previously sponsored actually has to be included in the number in your current family size. If it's been a recent sponsorship within the past 5 to 10 years, then it's most likely safest to go ahead and include them in the family size. But if it's been more than 10 years, or you're certain that they have earned or can be credited with at least 40 quarters of Social Security Administration credit, then you don't have to include them. So that is a case where it's, a little bit more investigation may be warranted to determine whether you need to include that person in your family size or not. Finally, if you have siblings, parents, or children over the age of 18 who are living in your household, who are combining their income with yours for purposes of this I-864 that you're completing, then those individuals also should be listed in your family size in this, in number 7. If they are not including their income, then you don't have to necessarily include them unless they're a child between the age of 18 and 21. Then you do have to include them, but you will have already done that in the part for your dependent children. Now, again, if you've already included them as dependent children and they're combining their income, you may want to take them out of the dependent children section and include them here so that you can indicate that their income will be included. I know this is getting confusing. This is where having a good immigration attorney that you trust to help you kind of figure this out is really valuable. The final box on section 5 of Form I-864 is just the total. So here's where you add up all the numbers and all the boxes above and come up with your total family size number. That's the number that you're going to use to check uscis.gov/I-864p.pdf. That is where I-864p is where you can go to check, compare your family size with the actual amount of income. It has to be the 125% of federal poverty guidelines that you are earning in order to qualify as a sponsor for this immigrant. So that is information about family size. We at Walker Gates Vela have many, many years, especially combined years of experience helping individuals sponsor and petition for immigrant family members and loved ones. So if you are serving as a co-sponsor or a petitioner for an immigrant, thank you. Thank you for contributing to our country in that way. If you need assistance calculating family size and determining whether your income is sufficient to be able to sponsor that person without an additional co-sponsor, please reach out to us. We are happy to talk to you. We're happy to look at your family size, talk through all of these details with you, come up with a calculation with you, and help you determine if the answer is yes, you need a co-sponsor, or no, you're good to sponsor on your own. Again, I'm Jennifer Walker Gates. Please hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. We are publishing videos regularly about these issues, about how these processes work, in order to make sure that immigrants have the best possible and most reliable information that they can get. So please do hit subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at walkergatesvela.com. There you can find a button to click and get directly onto our calendar, schedule a consultation directly, or you can also find our phone number for our main office where you can call and request help scheduling an appointment as well. With that, I'm going to sign off. I hope everyone's doing great, staying safe and well. Take good care, get your vaccine, hit subscribe, and I'll see you soon.